Occult Confessions is brought to you commercial-free through the generous support of our patrons. Visit occultconfessions.com and click on Donate to help keep the history of the occult on the digital airwaves.
Who was Hermes Trismegistus, regarded by the Greeks and Egyptians as the inventor of language, writing, religion, music, astronomy, and wrestling? Who was Hermes Trismegistus, author of the 18 tractates that came to be called the Corpus Hermeticum, as well as the Asclepius and the Kore Kosemue? Who was Hermes Trismegistus, who Cicero called the fifth and final of the 5 incarnations of the Greek god Hermes, and tutored the great Egyptian gods Isis and Osiris? Who donned the Helm of Hades, a magical cap of invisibility, to slay the giant Hippolytus during the battle between the Titans and the gods? And who taught the Egyptians their burial rites? Today, on Occult Confessions, we go in search of the legend, the myth, the sage, Hermes, thrice great. My name is Rob C. Thompson. I am your supreme hierophant of the Secret Order of Alchemical Actors. I am joined by Olivia Littoral, the Grand Master of the Order.
Hello.
What's up?
Nothing much. I don't know. We're here.
We're here. We brought Jacob today.
We did.
Hello, campers.
This is Jacob Wheatley, Knight of the Dangling Serpent, also apparently your camp counselor for today's episode.
Yep.
Oh my god, are we gonna braid those friendship bracelets and
I never
those keychain
did
things
that.
with the beads on them? If you were a bead girl,
Can we
oh
do
my
the
God.
ropes course?
Yeah, we can, I guess, right?
I'm
No
not gonna
rules.
lie, I never went to camp, so I really don't know what any of this is.
You went to Jesus camp, didn't you, Olivia?
Oh hell yeah, I did.
What's the difference between Jesus camp and regular camp?
Oh, okay.
A lot of Jesus.
Yeah,
And you
I
have
will say
like
I did do that.
Bible study every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of Jesus songs, but that part was cool.
Oh yeah,
I ran a lot of theater camp. We didn't do that.
no
I
Jesus.
didn't do that.
Oddly enough, Jesus
Yeah.
doesn't come up at theater camp.
Maybe that's why I never went to
Weird.
theater
No
camp.
morality plays. No.
Medieval theater camp, yes, I agree. That would be
Yes.
very
Oh.
Jesus-y.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Nice.
let's pledge it up. Just plow right on through. Here we go. We, the members of the
Members
Secret
of the
Order of
Secret Order
Alchemical
of Alchemical
Actors,
Actors
do solemnly commit ourselves
to a full and honest telling of the history of the occult as far as we know it.
All right, Olivia, open up those plugs.
Plug, plug, plug. That was very special this time. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's always special to me.
Oh, wow. That's the nicest thing
That was really
you've ever
nice.
said.
Is it the nicest thing? Just
That's
the
one
way
of
you
them.
say that word. I'll put it on the list. So, speaking of nice things, I want to mention Seize the Nar Glass. Seize the Nar Glass. That's
Is that a
GNAR glass.
Or are you
So-
just saying that? What?
Currently we are in the process of receiving a piece of fan glass from Seize the Nar. He's sending us glass, occult
shit.
glass.
Occult
Like-
glass.
Like a glass blowing situation?
Yeah.
we have a
So
glass
when it
blower?
arrives, we will share pictures, and I just wanted to mention that. And so if you're
Whoa.
looking for some occulty glass,
Cool.
check out Seize the Nar glass.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, and me
You
too. I
didn't
can't
tell me
wait.
this. I'm like genuinely like,
I saved
thank
it
you
for a surprise.
for that
yeah.
gift. Yeah.
You wanted an authentic
pick me up.
reaction.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's on the way. So we're looking forward to seeing that. I want to bring that up. All right, let's get to the patrons. We got a nice, healthy group, and we are delighted. We
Woo.
are within dollars of being fully funded, and then once we hit that mark, Olivia and I will begin concocting new schemes and plans, which we pretty much have already done, and we
Yes.
will share those with you. Though that's what will happen.
Yeah. They will no longer be in our heads.
No, we will go ahead and put them out there.
Yeah.
So let's thank some folks. Bobby K, also David S, and Ronnie and Zarek, And here's another crew. So those are all brand new folks. We are delighted. A lot of those folks are joining us top tier, which we are
Oh,
also
Ooh.
delighted. We will accept you at any tier, though. We
Yes, at
accept
any.
what tier you are able to tier into.
whatever comes with you.
Right.
That tier.
Mm.
It's for us.
Speaking of tiers, though, we've had 4 folks who have bumped their tier.
Oh.
Luke K. and Cat Daddy Welds, who is our friend who's a welder, who had a different name, I think, when we first mentioned.
Well,
Cat
that's
Daddy.
a great name. So
I would
that's
adore
really-
that.
Yeah.
Now Cat Daddy Welds. Kaylee, and actually Zarek made a pledge and then bumped
Wow.
Zarek's own pledge
Oh,
right
no.
away.
Wow.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
So a lot of these folks wrote in messages just that they had. I hadn't intended for this to happen, and I feel a little bit bad. But it is true that Patreon, through no fault of Patreon's own, but because of state laws or whatever, has started to deduct taxes from patron contributions. And these folks felt like they wanted to, I guess, give a little extra to make up for the tax difference because it comes out of our side. Which is very nice thought. So I guess I apologize for sounding needy, but I really appreciate the love. It means a lot. We've been feeling a lot of love lately, and we'll get to that at the end of the episode in Order of Confessors as well. But I'm feeling really good about the podcast, and it's because of the community's just embrace lately. I've been feeling just a lot of love from y'all. So. Thank you.
From
That was so sweet.
Yeah, we went from no occult fam to so many people.
Right?
So
How did we ever get by without an occult fam?
It was just
We didn't.
you and me in your office mostly, right? And a couple other people would come in sometimes and sit on the floor, and that was it.
Yeah, this is better.
Yeah. Now everyone is listening, not just the people in your office.
Just leave that office in the past, man.
Well, I still need it. I gotta.
Yeah, he's still there.
You don't need it.
Okay.
Okay, no one's allowed to come in now.
Yeah, I can't even get in without permission from security because of COVID. Anyway, Olivia, close up those plugs.
Plug. That's
all
it.
Right.
That's all I got.
I think it matched the beginning, though.
Yeah, I thought,
The name Trismegistus means thrice great. Today, most historians who concern themselves with Hermes, they tend to believe that he was mostly, if not entirely, a legend. The various writings attributed to Hermes were pseudographia. There's your word for the day. Pseudographia. Nobody wants to say that with me?
Pseudographia.
I stutter sometimes, and I'm kind of afraid to say it.
Okay. Yeah, it starts with that hard S. So, pseudographia means works not written by the name they are ascribed to. So, someone has given them a false name. It's not quite the same as a pseudonym, where you intentionally give yourself a false name. You don't. But this is pseudographia, is when you try to get someone to believe someone else has written this. So, any Hermes Trismegistus text was written by no such person because there is no such person, but it's not an intentional pseudonym of a single person. It's a pseudographia because it's been applied to multiple different works by authors who really want you to believe that this Hermes Trismegistus wrote them. You see the difference?
Yeah.
So, 3rd century Syrian Neoplatonist Iamblichus. See, I acted like he was going to have a second name, but that's the whole thing. It's Greek. Iamblichus. He claimed that the texts were written by the Egyptians and translated by Greek philosophers. The Egyptians, he said, traced all of their knowledge back to a mythical figure called Hermes Trismegistus. And so it could be said that their writing was the work of this legendary originator. All of their writing in a certain way. But its translation through the Greeks made it more than its source. So we've got this ancient Egyptian source, and the Greeks conquer Egypt, and then they translate it. But in translating it, they add their own Greek flavor to it. So what we end up with is a product that's both the best of both worlds, both Egyptian and Greek in style and substance. Hermes Trismegistus is often described as a blend of the gods Thoth and Hermes, Thoth being on the Egyptian side and Hermes on the Greek side. You guys know anything about these characters?
Sorry. That was not my
I don't know if that was
response.
a nope. or not.
So no, then. That's all right. That's what I'm here for. Thoth was originally the Egyptian moon god, but the prominence of the... You're a witchy person, Olivia. Shouldn't you be
No,
up
I
on your
do
moon
know.
gods?
I just was too busy coughing. I'm
coughing.
sorry.
Yeah, so-
I do. I actually almost bought a Thoth statue once, like years ago, but then I
Is it
didn't.
Thoth?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, right? What is it?
I don't know. I don't know any pronunciations. I just make them up as I go with confidence.
Thoth,
Wow.
right?
No, it's Toth, but I think you can shove the H. It's also an ancient spelling, so there's a lot of
You're
variation.
right. I guess
Yeah.
I've just read with an H.
So
on
this is your
the end,
personal
but-
preference.
Well, I mean, I really don't bring him up very often.
I'm gonna
Like
keep
I
calling
said,
him
I can't even
Thoth.
remember what his head looks like. Is he? No, never mind. I can't remember. You're gonna tell
Is
me.
it-
What
is
is
it-
it?
I'm gonna get is ibis-headed Thoth,
Okay, right. He's a bird, right?
Birdman. I
Okay,
mean, there's
that's
several
what I-
different birds in the pantheon, but
I was
anyway.
gonna name a bird, but it was not gonna be that one. So
It's a distinctly Nile bird.
cool.
Okay, so the prominence of the moon in astrology, astronomy, and ritual in general elevated Thoth's role from just, moon god to patron of wisdom, magic, and measurement.
Wow.
So if your penis is too small, you know who to blame.
Okay.
He
Well,
was-
all right. There we go. We said it here. Apparently, I didn't know that was our stance officially, but
It's the ruler's fault. No. It's
okay.
don't blame Thoth. It's not Thoth's fault.
Everyone's
Thoth
gonna be
was not
cursing
involved.
him, and
He was regarded as the inventor of the 365-day calendar and hieroglyphs, serving as the scribe of the Underworld, and he was worshipped by Egyptian scribes in this world as their patron. He gave Isis, speaking of which, the magical words to resurrect Osiris after she'd assembled his dismembered body, plus a penis. She didn't find that. Remember, she had to get a golden one. When the rival god Set plucked out Horus's eye, their kid, Thoth counseled Horus on how to get his eye back. Thoth was responsible for knowing the proper order of the burial rite, also for conducting the dead into the presence of the gods. A cult of Thoth rose to prominence in the city of Hermopolis Magna, which was sort of a city that was both Greek and Egyptian. And 1 million ibis were mummified and buried in the god's honor. Think about that.
You said 1 million?
of these birds. Yes.
they
Jeez.
killed 1 million just for this purpose.
I mean, it's this an ancient thing, right? So we gotta, maybe they exaggerated that number a little bit, but
Well,
a
because
bunch.
you said before that a bunch was only 7, so I'm not really sure. I tell you what, I am still hung up on that to this day.
Why?
I don't know, because it's just never mind.
Hermopolis, as I mentioned, so we just mummified 1 million ibis, which, as Jacob points out, probably means 8.
Just killed
Yeah,
the Nile.
Hermopolis sits on the border between Upper and Lower Egypt. After Alexander's conquest of Egypt, the Greeks gave the city the name Hermopolis, meaning City of Hermes, because they identified Thoth with Hermes. So the Greeks sort of looked at the Egyptian pantheon and said, Thoth, yeah, we know him. We call him Hermes.
Oh, cool.
Incidentally, yeah, it was nice of him. Hermopolis was also the place where Jesus and his family were supposed to have stayed during their possibly apocryphal sojourn in Egypt. Those who believe Jesus received any training as a sorcerer or magician believe it probably happened in Egypt, and if it happened in Egypt, it happened here in this city, the city of Hermes. So the intercultural overlaps of the city suggest also the overlap of Thoth, Hermes, and, finally, Hermes Trismegistus. Hermes had a lot in common with Thoth, again, going back to the Greeks. He was a patron of shepherds, also gymnastics and oratory, which links up with Thoth's connections to language and wrestling. As the messenger god, somewhat akin to Thoth's role as scribe, Hermes was also a patron of merchants and thieves. In mythology, Hermes conducted the dead into the underworld. Sound familiar? Thoth knew all about the underworld rites and was in fact in charge of them. Hermes' Hades helmet concealed him, and he gave Odysseus a magical herb to protect him against Circe's power. So both of these are very occulty gods of the gods. They're bestowing occult power and secrets to humanity. The writing most closely associated with Hermes, the Corpus Hermeticum, was composed between the 1st century BCE and the 4th century CE. When exactly, it's hard to say. Herodotus identified Hermes with Thoth in the 5th century BCE, and there are mentions of Hermes as a cultural founder in the 1st century BCE, but the actual name Hermes Trismegistus didn't emerge until the 2nd century CE in the work of Athenagoras of Athens. Did you follow all that?
Yes. No.
Wait, what was her name? What did you say?
Athenagoras? Is that where we're talking about? I was talking about all the dates were sort of
Athenagoras?
bouncing back and forth.
Yeah, you definitely lost me somewhere in there, but you know.
So the Corpus Hermeticum, which is the major text associated with Hermes, there's a lot of texts associated with Hermes, but this is like the major central philosophical text. This could have been written anytime in about 500 years, which overlap the year 0, 400 of those years being on our side of the divide. You got me?
Is this the one that you said is no, never mind.
I mean,
Is this the Nag Hammadi thing? No.
it's gonna come. Yeah, it's coming. It's coming.
Oh, okay.
Keep your socks on.
Sorry.
Just you wait.
I'm sorry.
Fragments of Hermetic texts appear in papyri dating to the 2nd century BCE. In 1945, a portion of the Corpus Hermeticum dating to the 4th century was found in, here it comes, Olivia, you just had to keep your socks on for a hot second, the Nag Hammadi.
Oh.
Yeah,
Well, the
that
library.
happened.
So, the Nag Hammadi Library was a collection of Christian and Gnostic texts. Olivia's way into those Gnostic texts, and those were discovered in Egypt. So, among those was some of Hermes' Corpus Hermeticum. So, because that dates to the 2nd century BCE, we can guess that the Corpus Hermeticum was kicking around as early as that.
Cool. I feel validated.
Hermes' greatest influence on the Western world happened during the Renaissance, when Cosimo de' Medici commissioned Marsilio Ficino to translate the Corpus Hermeticum into Latin in the year 1463. So, great big jump in time. So he's got a presence in the ancient world, in ancient Greece and ancient Rome, but we really get excited about the Corpus Hermeticum and a lot of these Hermetic texts in the Renaissance. And that's why we're talking about them now, is that these Renaissance occultists got jazzed about him and pulled him into the present age. This is not,
That's
special.
kind of like humanist-y, right? Would it be? Because he's kind of like Greekish, sort of? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so it is a general thing that's happening in the Renaissance. Hermes, this is just one of many things that are being recovered from the ancient world. There was this ideology through the Dark and the Middle Ages that said that ancient texts were pagan, and so the knowledge was invalid, and we looked past them. But when we moved into the Renaissance and we sort of started to get over that way of thinking, we went back and recovered all of these pagan philosophies and texts and sources. In fact, we often, and this wasn't necessarily the case with Hermes, but we talked about this with the Emerald Tablet, this was often happening through Islam, because Islam did not have this moment where they rejected ancient Greek text. In fact, they kept it, and a lot of Muslim philosophers commented on Aristotle and sort of carried that philosophy forward. So we went to the Muslims because they had kept the tradition alive, whereas we had abandoned it during our medieval period.
Huh.
Fun facts. According to Ficino, the great sage Hermes Trismegistus was born during the time of Moses. So I don't know when that time was. I feel like we argue a lot about when that time actually was.
I was
But
about
it
to
was
say,
that time.
I can tell you like around the time that they taught us when I was in Christian school, but
What's the time?
they said it was about two, 3,000 BC, maybe.
3,000 years before 0.
Yes.
Or
Yeah.
1, before the
Yeah.
year 1.
Well, because back then they taught us that it was only on like a 8,000 year like time frame, like with the Earth.
Existence
Mhm.
is 8,000 years old. Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. I mean, we're not shocked by that. That's not news. We're not going to get all wound up about it.
No. I was like,
I'm
okay.
mad.
But I think he's associated with like he could have possibly lived during the reign of Akhenaten, and there's all
Mhm.
sorts of different theories about when Moses was around. We don't know for sure. Anyway, but our friend Ficino says it was just like Moses' time, whenever that was. That's when Hermes was around.
Cool.
So as a king of Egypt, he introduced writing and law, also theology, to his people. So Hermes was also a priest who had been drafted to the priesthood from the ranks of the philosophers. So step 1, he's a philosopher. And then the priests are like, why don't you join us? And he's like, okay, cool. And then last step, he's drafted to become a king from the priests, top of the pyramid. See, he's made this progression. Philosophers on the bottom. I take offense to that a little bit, but I understand. No love for the philosopher. For his many achievements, he was elevated to the status of a god at his death. The sage, Ficino said, Hermes the sage, was responsible for killing the giant Argus. Here we see the overlap between history and myth. Argus, also known as Argus Panoptes, was a legendary Greek titan said to have had many eyes, perhaps 100, such that there were always some wakeful as others slept. Argus was a servant of Hera who killed Echidna, the serpent-legged mother of monsters in Greek mythology. Anybody, you guys know Echidna?
No. Well,
Sounds
no.
badass, though.
Yeah, it does. I know the kind of the Hera thing a little bit, but not.
Well, we're going to do this whole thing now. After Zeus became enamored with the nymph Io, his jealous wife Hera transformed Io into a cow, chained her to a tree, and then gave her loyal servant Argus Panoptes with his many eyes the job of keeping Zeus away from her.
My disloyal husband is most anxious to mate again with his whorish nymph. May your wakefulness keep his sluttiness at bay.
As you wish, my goddess.
Zeus knew that Io would be birthing a line of descendants that would culminate in the great hero Heracles, and was committed to mating with her any way possible. And so he gave Hermes the task of liberating her from Argus.
Needs I must have this nymph, albeit when she is less cow-like than she is at present. Go forth, Hermes, and slay the giant by whatever means necessary.
Disguised as a shepherd, Hermes charmed all of the giant's eyes by playing his flute and telling stories until the giant was completely asleep.
The first of my tales is a story of grass, and how it grows long of a summer day.
You say this is the first. How many tales have you brought, friend shepherd?
100.
Suppose we skip to the 99th.
Ah, yes. The story of how the clay doth bake in the sun and slowly harden.
Or we could just pass the day in silence. I would not want to overtax your voice with the telling of so many tales.
It is no burden. You must get awfully lonesome sitting under this tree with nothing to occupy your 100 eyes or normal number of ears but the wind and the clouds.
The winds and the clouds are actually quite good company.
Ah, that is story number 38. It was a mild and temperate day, and the wind moved the clouds across the sky with neither haste nor delay. Steadily they passed, making no formations worth noting.
Is that it?
And the wind made no sound. It was wholly uneventful passing of wind and clouds.
Eventually, all of Argus's 100 eyelids closed over his 100 eyes, and as soon as he was asleep, Hermes cut off his head. Zeus descended and freed the nymph, and she ran off, still in cow form, running until she reached the Black Sea. There, she met Prometheus, who prophesied that she would be changed back and become the mother of heroes. Fleeing across the Ionian Sea into Egypt, she was visited by Zeus again, who changed her back, and at last they sexed and birthed. That's romance, kids.
Amen.
The myth's association with Hermes Trismegistus suggests a few significant things about him. First, that he is possessed of cunning and magic, which is, I think, Jacob and Olivia. When you put them together, you have cunning and magic.
Who is who?
Well, we'll figure that out later.
Obvious. Oh. I was going to say you're the cunning and I was the magic.
Yeah,
but
that's what I was gonna say too.
Hermes does not conquer Argus by force, but rather by trickery and arguably enchantment. Second, Hermes is a liberator. His knowledge and cunning can set us free, serving as an agent in a process that will transform us from beasts into humans, elevating and ennobling us, so that we too can sex and birth with Zeus.
Oh, shit.
We just have to stop being cows.
Well,
Oh, I love cows.
You see that? See how the metaphor works?
Yeah, I do now. I really get it.
And it gives you such joy.
Okay.
Hermes influenced a range of philosophers across traditions, including Giovanni Pico de Mirandola, the Rosicrucian Robert Fludd, and perhaps most significantly the doctor and alchemist Paracelsus. Renaissance occultists were a significant inspiration for the occult revival at the turn of the 20th century. The Rosicrucian Freemasons drew on Hermes as an ancient philosopher and sage, wielding his theories against modernizing Enlightenment philosophers. During the occult revival, Hermes was identified more as an alchemist in the tradition of Paracelsus, and in this guise informed the practices of esoteric orders across Europe. And so, Hermes Trismegistus has moved through time to our modern age. There are a fairly wide collection of works attributed to Hermes, but the two most significant to his legacy are the Corpus Hermeticum and the Asclepius. The Corpus Hermeticum is framed by a conversation between a narrator and a higher being called the man shepherd. Not to be confused with the woman shepherd.
Or the boy shepherd.
Or the non-binary shepherd, I want to be inclusive.
Yeah.
Right?
There you go.
Those
Yeah.
shepherds, though, not in this story.
Wow. Well, I'm less interested now.
It's the man shepherd.
Amped it up like that, and now I'm. Oh,
They weren't
okay.
that progressive back then.
Yeah.
But they'll get on board.
In like a long ass time.
Much of the text itself is a series of dialogues. Most of these dialogues are between Hermes as teacher and his student Asclepius, or his son Tat.
How did you get left off with a name like Tat?
Why wasn't he the fourth Hermes? You know what I mean?
He named his kids Hermes, Tit, and Tat. It's Tat. It's just Tat. Tat's who gets to learn. Hermes divides his time between these students, pursuing different lines of thought depending on their interests. His teachings begin with creation. So, let's do some creation, shall we?
We're going to create something? Okay.
With the podcast, we're creating as we speak.
Thank you for that.
After nature received the word of God, she copied heaven, or the cosmos, by the means of her own elements and the birth of souls. These things were given form by a second mind with a capital M, born from the original God mind, capital G, capital M. Does this sound at all familiar, Olivia?
Oh, Gnosticism. I got it. I'm here.
In Hermes' version of the metaphysical realms, there are two gods, much like in, as Olivia says, the Gnostic universe, except that, unlike the Gnostics, the second mind is not regarded as an evil demiurge, even though it is by definition not as perfect and good as the original God mind. The first God is the cause of all things, and perfectly good. Part of what allows this original God to be so good is that his only role is to bring the world into being and pervade existence. This God does not act the creator god, also known as the god mind of fire and spirit, and the good daemon, that does act. So, in other words, when you're like, oh, if God's all good, how come he brings hurricanes and how come he kills orphans and stuff?
It's just his plan.
Right, but in Hermes' philosophy, we don't get into this problem so much because the perfect all good God doesn't take action in this world. That God doesn't even go to the trouble of creating the world, because then we could be like, well, and how come there's, I don't know, slugs? That seems unpleasant.
But not slug theodicies.
I don't know if theodicy gets into slugs. Slug theodicy.
That's honestly the reading material I need. If anyone can hook me up out there. Thank you.
Hermes does not have this issue because Hermes has got our good god who sort of like kicks off this creator god, and that good god is sort of like the seat of all being, and the creator god's actually doing all the work and the action, and this is the good daemon. So the good daemon, first order of business, creates 7 rulers to reign over creation. These immortals existed in a realm separate from nature. God's reason, or logos, leapt upward away from nature, leaving the downward aspects of nature mindless. So there's a kind of split in God as the universe is being formed. We've got our 7 rulers, and now the God mind and nature with a capital N have split into separate quadrants. Mindless matter brought forth the animals of the air, the water, and the earth. The good daemon then created man in his own image, man, woman, and non-binary. I want to be clear, listeners. And allowed man to become a creator, him, her, or themselves. Yeah? You got me so far?
Very Gnosticism-y.
So, this immortal man, capital immortal, capital man, existing in the heavens, was given authority over all of the mortal creatures who worshipped him. So all our mindless birds and fish and stuff. But he became entangled with the lower, moister natural world. It's moister down here. I feel that. It's pretty humid.
It's gross, but okay, whatever. Yeah. I had a visceral reaction to that, to be totally honest. He really said moist? You weren't just like
no, I don't
us?
think I would have pulled in moist of my own accord.
You say weird shit all the time. I don't know. It sounds like a weird adjective you'd pull up.
I don't.
You said it's been humid.
He wished to subdue nature in full. I'm talking about the immortal man here. Wished to subdue nature completely, and so descended to her, and she then was no, and wrapped herself around him.
This is a power... this is power play.
Foolproof plan to, stop someone.
Well, what actually the result of that is us. We are both nature and man. So the soul is basically what descended down to earth to control nature, and then the soul was enwrapped in nature, forming our physical selves. So we're partially immortal, and we are partially mortal, with our immortal self always pining downward to subdue the mortal, and the mortal always pining upward for the immortal. Our physical self reaching upward to heaven, and our spiritual self seeking to exert control over our physical self. Does that make sense? Yeah,
kind of like in Gnosticism, what's it called? The spark. Like the light. What is it? That's not the right phrase. It's like...
You're asking the wrong
the inner spark that's like almost like a little bit of God or in everyone kind of idea. Do you know what I mean? Do you remember that from my episode? Never mind.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Well, let's say yes, though.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Let's talk about sex, shall we?
Let's talk okay.
The first men came in a set of 7, and all of them were hermaphroditic. So this is very gender inclusive,
Hell
I think,
yeah.
this whole scheme. Yeah. So 7 hermaphroditic men, and then the good daemon, or created god, split the man into male and female and encouraged them to reproduce. So we got 7...
Should have just left it for what it was.
Yeah, it would have been...
It was much easier.
Yeah.
They still could have been, reproduce, but just, have way more fun with it.
Right? Honestly, I think the world would be a lot better if. No, I don't think I should say that.
I agree. You don't even have to.
Okay. All right.
Increase ye in increasing, and multiply in multitude, ye creatures and creations all. And man that hath mind in him, let him learn to know that he himself is deathless, and that the cause of death is love, though love is all.
This is the paradox of Hermes' theology. Sex is regarded as good, or at least a necessary aspect of human life, but bodily pleasure is, in a quasi-Buddhist fashion, labeled as a distraction from the spirit. Not evil necessarily, but distracting from our spiritual goal of, enlightening ourselves.
Wherefore, child, making is a very great and most pious thing in life for them who think aright, and to leave life on earth without a child, a very great misfortune and impiety. And he who hath no child is punished by the daemons after death.
You're about to punish me because my womb is not pushing out babies?
I'm not
Are they
gonna
my
do that, but
freaking distant family? This is ridiculous.
I'm just saying what Hermes said here.
All right.
Okay, but like, what if you like adopt? Is that kind of like counter?
I think you'll be all right. Yeah, you can adopt. I feel
Okay.
like you could slide in on a technicality there.
I hope so.
So, the point I'm trying to make here is we are supposed to bang in Hermes' world. Sex is not anathema to our existence. So the question of sex is actually an important one, not just for the survival of the species or your roommate's toxic relationship with her boyfriend. It gets at the heart of a key difference between Hermes and the Gnostics. The Gnostics follow an ascetic path by which all things of this earth are wrought by an evil demiurge, as Olivia's been hinting around, and are inherently evil. Humans seek to transcend evil by transcending earthly things. So let's talk a little bit about gnosis in Hermes' world. In the cup, which is a piece of the Corpus Hermeticum, it's called the cup, Hermes explains, it's a chapter title. Hermes explains to his son Tat that God gave humans reason, but not the higher mind with a capital M or inner knowledge of the spirit. This God sent down separately in a cup, which humans can choose to drink from or ignore. But in the cup, a kind of schizophrenia sets in again, sort of like he's of two minds about sex. It's distracting from the spirit, but we also need to have it because we all should be, banging out some kids. This cup ideology also gets a little mixed up. The mind, Hermes says, embraces all things. Things on the earth, things in the heaven, and things above the heaven, if there be aught. Then in the same book, Hermes explains that humans can't give themselves both the things of the earth and divine things. We must choose body or spirit, and while one waxes, the other wanes. Can't go both directions at the same time. So he's sort of playing all sides of this question.
For things subject to birth abound in passions, birth in itself being passible. But where there's passion, nowhere is there good, and where is good, nowhere a single passion. For where is day, nowhere is night, and where is night, day is nowhere. But seeing that the sharing in all things hath been bestowed on matter, so doth it share in good. In this way is the cosmos good, that in so far as it doth make all things, as far as making goes, it's good. But in all other things, it is not good.
Passion is an earthly experience, a connection to mortal and passable things, and therefore passion is bad. But goodness has been bestowed on matter except to a lesser degree than it exists in the higher spheres of the cosmos. So the physical world also has its own inherent goodness, and the act of generation or creation is a tremendous good. Making children, having sex. But the fact that it propagates more mortal things is not good, because we want more spiritual things, not more mortal things. Yeesh. So, we should be having sex, and perhaps even enjoying it, but we should also be striving for the higher good of the spirit. If we embrace earthly things with our spiritual mind with a capital M, we should embrace the good in them, acknowledging with our reason that there is also less good or even bad in them as well. The point is, unlike the Gnostics, Hermes acknowledges that there is good at every level of creation. God pervades all things. Only at the level of the originating God is there pure good, and insofar as God is also pure spirit, we should strive to liberate ourselves from our connection to the material, but that is not to detract from God's place in it and the goodness that exists in earthly life. So it's a complex, mixed story that Hermes is telling here about where good and evil reside in their relation to the physical and the spiritual world.
Again, the parent is the children's cause, both on the father's and the mother's side, only by sharing in the good's desire, that doth pour through the son. It is the good which doeth the creating.
Let's talk about the afterlife. You guys both there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
Okay.
I didn't have anything to say. I was just listening.
I got you. All right.
I was pretty
Yeah.
into it.
Okay. All
Just,
right.
like,
I don't want to.
listening.
Don't let me
Yeah.
interrupt your flow here. Okay. So let's talk about the afterlife. By focusing on God and goodness, we can move ourselves along in a hierarchy of reincarnations.
Thus, some that were creeping things change into things that in the water dwell. The souls of water things change to earth dwellers. Those that live on earth change to things with wings, and souls that live in air change to men, while human souls reach the first step of deathlessness, changed into daemons. And so they circle to the choir of the inerrant gods, for of the gods there are two choirs, the one inerrant and the other errant. And this is the most perfect glory of the soul.
The path is up. The path down is not so clear, though. Hermes says that man can descend toward the creeping things if he lives in vice, but he also says that humans cannot be changed into beasts. Once they attain a human soul will always demand a human body at its reincarnation. This is, incidentally, very similar to Helena Blavatsky's concept of human reincarnation. If humans turn away from goodness and live in vice, they are punished by the daemons or spirits in the transition between this life and the next. So you're not going to get knocked down on the reincarnation, but boy, they're going to whip the crap out of you while they've got your soul.
So like it's in like an in-between, like,
Yeah, in limbo.
place between.
Yeah, they beat up on
Okay.
you in limbo,
So,
tickle you and
so
stuff.
it's like so hypothetically, it's like a waiting room that you're sitting in, and then these things just come in and just start beating the crap out of you,
Yes.
and then your number pops up, and it's like, oh, all right, bye.
Yeah, you start over. Yep, that's how it is. Yeah. You're sitting quietly. There's like Muzak in the background. Then the door opens up and all these little demons run in and start tickling you and poking you with hot things.
For at least like
Oh.
1,000 years.
Well, I mean,
That's like...
I don't know how long.
No, I'm like, legit, if you're... In my Reformations class, like, normally if you were in purgatory, it was like for at least 1,000 years. Like, when they first made
Do
purgatory.
you get whipped in purgatory? I thought you just sort of sat there and
No,
thought
this
about
is
how
like
bad you've
the
been.
like OG purgatory idea when like not all of Catholicism was even like following purgatory.
see, I didn't learn about all of that, so
You know, this was a boring class. Well, it was interesting to me, but whatever.
When mind becomes a daemon, the law requires that it should take a fiery body to execute the services of God. And entering in the soul most impious, it scourgeth it with whips made of its sins.
All of us become fire at death because fire is the natural vehicle of the soul, that is, before our reincarnation. And if we've been good, we can enjoy a closer ascension to God. But if we've been bad, it's fiery torment for our fiery selves. There's a sense in Hermes that bad behavior is its own torment insofar as it separates us from God, a familiar sentiment across many traditions. But if we're serious about gnosis, true enlightenment, what should our approach be? The answer comes to Hermes in a dialogue with Mind, with a capital M. This Mind seems to be the good daemon creator himself. The fact that Hermes is receiving these teachings from a higher source, rather than being the higher source giving the teachings to somebody like Tat, means that we are dealing with a more advanced teaching than the other dialogues in the corpus. You got me?
Make then thyself to grow to be the same stature as the greatness which transcends all measure. Leap forth from every body, transcend all time, become eternity, and thus shalt thou know God. Conceiving nothing is impossible unto thyself. Think thyself deathless and able to know all arts, all sciences, the way of every life. Become more lofty than all height and lower than all depth. Collect into thyself all senses of all creatures, of fire and water, dry and moist. Think that thou art at the same time in every place, in earth, in sea, in sky, not yet begotten in the womb, young, old, and dead in after-death conditions. And if thou knowest all these things at once, times, places, doings, qualities, and quantities, thou canst know God.
This, to me, reveals a lot about Hermes' metaphysics. The world is not evil, nor are our earthly pleasures, but our attachment to the world and our pursuit of immediate pleasure makes us small. Our approach to gnosis must be expansive, expanding knowledge, expanding feeling, expanding space and time. It is a grand embrace of life, both matter and spirit in all its complexity. This embrace is an act of great confidence. The unenlightened human being believes that this life is all there is, and that it is not possible to know all through God.
But if thou lockest up thy soul within thy body, and dost debase it, saying, I nothing know, I nothing can, I fear the sea, I cannot scale the sky, I know not who I was, who I shall be, what is there then between thy God and thee?
This is what makes Hermes an occult icon. The individual can aspire to know God through mystical vision that requires attempting to see through the eyes of the God mind. Losing yourself to your own subconscious is an important part of this path. Hermes talks about God visiting the student in dreams. The body's sleep, he says, is the soul's awakening. The path is very much within the reach of the aspirant, and there are steps to take to move onto the path. But the visions revealed through God are an occult secret.
Whene'er I see within myself the simple vision brought to birth out of God's mercy, I have passed through myself into a body that can never die. And now I am not as I was before, but I am born in mind. The way to do this is not taught, and it cannot be seen by the compounded element by means of which thou seest.
The other major Hermetic text, the Asclepius.
Nice.
There you go.
I've been saying it with confidence, I think totally wrong. Visits very similar themes, but in the Asclepius.
I feel like you nailed it the first time. You were so confident.
I don't think I did at all. I think I just transposed some letters to make it easier to say.
It was very confident, though.
It visits very similar themes, but it introduces a new idea, and one we like quite a bit here on this podcast, apocalypse.
We do. We love her. We stand the apocalypse here. Oh, yes, she is a she. Are you joking?
She's a she. Okay, I'm all right. I'm open to that.
Yeah.
The Asclepius predicts a doomsday in which men lose their habit of piously praising God and maintaining the cosmos through their praise. The gods abandon the world, and everything falls apart, only to be restored later. Much of Hermetic writing seems to mirror Christian thought, albeit not closely enough for purists. Augustine, for example, was not a fan. In addition to revelation-like apocalypse, Hermes' single God at the heart of creation mirrors the Judeo-Christian concept, at least in outline. And the lack of an evil demiurge gives Hermes a leg up on the Gnostics, who the Christians famously hated. But the god mind created by the central god and the 7 immortals descended from the god mind get to be just a little bit too fancy for Christian orthodoxy. Not to mention Hermes' reliance on reincarnation as the fundamental mechanism of the afterlife, not very Christian. Other texts identified with Hermes include the Kore Kosemue, which marks humans as formerly rebellious spirits sent to Earth to atone for their transgressions against God. You got this?
kind
It's
of
like
intense.
a angels fallen from heaven
Yeah.
thing. That's all of us.
Nice.
We're the fallen angels.
We are yes, we're them.
That's like a CW show right there.
Let's get on that.
Call them up.
Put that treatment together. Hermetic writing also points in the direction of, iatromathematics. This is a tough episode.
Wow, you nailed that though, right?
Yeah.
Who knows? Iatromathematics is the application of astrology to medicine and was popular in the 16th century. That's kind of fun, though. So, in other words, you would use your star chart to figure out what's going on with your knees, why that knee hurts.
What I do now.
Okay, I think I just read about that, actually, very briefly.
Did you really?
I think they brought that up in Bathory for like a brief second, one of the things I was reading, but it wasn't like a lot.
Interesting.
But it had to do with like, I guess her having, or like epilepsy or something maybe, or it was the insanity thing. I can't remember, but they brought that up. But I don't remember that word. That's crazy.
Well, it's our basic like alchemical notion, right? As above, so below. Man as microcosm correlates to the cosmos or the macrocosm. The planets rule over men and their body parts. Certain star gods are responsible for certain ailments, and there is a corresponding pharmacology to treat those ailments. Hermes is regarded as the founder of this branch of thought. So you got your foot star god, and that star god, he's got particular plants that you can apply if you're having, I don't know, tingling toes. Hermes is also credited with contributing to pharmacology, magic, and alchemy. In a book attributed to Cyrenius, the author claims that he received the text from Hermes, who received it from the angels. It lists the treatment of various ailments using ointments derived from animals, plants, or minerals. Hermes is regarded as the author of the Greek magical papyri from Egypt containing rituals and spells for prophecy, love charms, self-protection, harm of enemies, and catching thieves. Remember, the Hermes is the thief god. Also merchant god. He's on both sides of that.
Wow, he really monopolized
from
the whole
himself.
thing.
He's got the whole, he didn't want to miss anyone.
Huh.
And Zosimus claimed that Hermes was a spiritual teacher opposed to magic. Weird. Humans should focus on knowledge of themselves and God, not magical practices in Zosimus's reading. These teachings are spiritual alchemy along the lines of what the Rosicrucians would advocate, a spiritualization or elevation of the human from matter to spirit. The disparate nature of these sources often creates paradoxes, as we're hearing, right, as we go. If Hermes was a magician, why would he write against the practice of magic in his alchemical texts? How do we reconcile his view that human souls were an extension of God in the Corpus Hermeticum with the concept of human spirits as rebellious in the Kore Kosemue? These mysteries obscure the great sage within the mists of time and remind us that our unitary concept of a single Hermes Trismegistus is a construction, a myth. But he's a myth that inspires and pushes us along on our search for God, which is why he is a myth we keep on sharing.
Reminds me of like, not like he reminds me of King Arthur at all, but like the whole legend. Like it just reminds me in essence of it. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, the lore, that
Yeah.
there are different stories and sometimes they contradict each other and some people regard him as real,
Yeah.
some people regard him as made up. Yeah, I think it's a reasonable comparison.
Which you said that he's kind of what's where like astrology has kind of come from him in a way.
Well, the gods Thoth and Hermes are regarded as astrological. His specific, Hermes Trismegistus in the writings, his specific contributions tend to be more in this medical astrology area.
That's cool. That was just something that I've been very much into for a while, and I didn't realize like one of the main like figures that has kind of influenced it. So
yeah, he's in the mix. Yeah. I mean, whenever you're dealing with alchemy, astrology is often not too far away because there's this
Yeah.
effort to unite heaven and earth, cosmos and the terrestrial. Let's gong on into that order of confessors. Chase S appreciates our labor of love.
Aw.
He notes isn't that nice? He notes the vast knowledge of yours truly and the inquisitive antics of mine truly. And by that I mean you guys. Your
I
mine
was like,
truly.
what?
Yeah.
Aw.
I was trying to figure out how to say that.
Yeah.
He calls us engaging, accessible, and hilarious.
Oh wow, I like those. Even I like
I don't know
accessible.
about hilarious, but I appreciate the thought.
It's a stretch, but it's all right.
We'll take it.
Yeah, it's debatable amongst our comments.
I'll give him engaging and accessible. I think that's right on. I'll give him the whole thing. Chase, we very much appreciate your
Yeah.
thoughts. Very encouraging. Also, Annabelle Crump calls us a little bit goofy, but a lot insightful.
Well, she's a lot right.
Yeah.
So
Thank you. I mean, that was my way of saying thank you. I'm sorry.
yeah, I feel like these are very accurate. Both Chase and Annabelle are giving. They took the time. They gave detailed reviews.
Yeah.
And we really appreciate the time they took because it lets folks know if they would enjoy the podcast. They enjoyed it and they said, this is what it's like. So if you don't like this kind of thing,
Get out of here.
Right? Yeah, and get
You're
out
in
of
the
here. Because it's not for everyone. I mean, we are a very unique. We're pretty unique. We're a pretty unique podcast.
Yeah.
Experience, right? So yeah, I think it's nice when folks who like us point out the things they like about us and are specific about it.
We need validation
We
too.
get too many
sometimes.
specifics from the haters. Arena on Facebook found us on Spotify, sending us kind words, also peace.
Oh.
Thank you, Arena.
I love that.
Ken Dietz calls us a guilty pleasure, gives us
Oh.
an A++.
Oh shit.
That's exactly how I feel about you all, so I
feel
can
like
see it.
the A++, we haven't got one of those in a while. I like that.
Oh
I
yeah,
like that
you're
it's back.
right. I like had a. I
Yeah.
forgot for a second. It's been so long.
Ken brought it back. Thank you,
Thanks,
Ken.
Ken.
Into Forever sent us some very kind words.
Wow.
I want to mention Into Forever. Into Forever is an educator with a clothing brand, and this clothing brand you can look them up on Instagram. They have some very witchy and satanic things going on in the aesthetic there. So check it out. And I still have to check out Dreaming in Neon, but I do want to give them a
Oh.
quick shout out too, because they do
Sounds fun.
alchemy-inspired music.
Oh wow, what the hell? I love that.
What?
Yeah. So please, listeners, friends, confessors, if you are doing occulty things, creative things, let us know. We are happy to share what you're up to. It builds community with folks and if folks are listening to this podcast, that means they're interested in non-commercial products, right?
Yeah.
Things off the, by that I don't mean like things for sale, but I mean like things off the beaten path. Like they're not just trying to go to Abercrombie, or is that still a thing?
I don't know. Did any of us ever
American
shop
Eagle?
there?
No, maybe.
These malls are
Yes,
dead.
that was-
Anyway, they're interested in do-it-yourself entrepreneurial enterprises, right? If you're listening to this podcast, you must be at least open to the idea. So if you are such a person who has your entrepreneurial occultiness out there in the wide world, let us know. We love to connect with you and share news about what you're up to. Finally, Samantha gave our O'Brien episode a shout out on Facebook. Also, Annie Fourcrows, with whom I have had the pleasure of having some fairly smart exchanges. Enjoy engaging with Annie. Did some sharing on the Instas. So again, this is the best thing for us. We love the reviews. Well, the best thing for us is to be a patron. So that keeps the lights on. But beyond that, sharing word of mouth is the best advertising. All the ads in the world do not amount to a hill of beans compared to a personal recommendation or or just bringing up an episode and discussing the topic on your social media or wherever you're at in the wide world, sharing your thoughts. So we are very grateful for that, and we will definitely reach out to you. We are not so large at this point that we can't reach out to respond to most people. So we're pretty good at, I think, Olivia, right? We're pretty good at getting back to folks.
Yeah, if not the main one, then whoever. Yeah.
If you're listening to this in 5 years, so it's currently 2020. If you're listening to this in 5 years, we are either too large to respond to every message and apologize, or have quit doing this.
That's fair.
That's just a message to the listeners 5 years from now, not the ones now.
No, right now we got you.
You're in this.
We can probably respond. Yeah, we respond to not all, but most of our messages.
Yeah.
All right, let's get out of here, Olivia.
I hereby adjourn and declare closed this meeting of the Secret Order of Alchemical Actors till such time as we get together and do it again.
We have the voices of Lucy Bond, Brandon Walls, and Sean Priest. They've been real, what is it called? Go-tos for us lately.
Oh, yes.
They've been very useful.
Useful.
Standbys, that's what I'm looking for. They've
Yeah.
been real standbys for us lately. So our love to them for their excellent work as always. Joining me around the table, I have Olivia Literal, our Grand Master of the Order.
Hello, guys. Remember, we have merch. Good day.
Oh yeah, merch. We're way beyond the plugs now.
I
This is the
know.
end of
That's
the
why I
episode.
just thought I'd throw it into my goodbye
Just sneak it
for
in
some
when you can.
reason.
We'll push it next time. Jacob Wheatley, our Knight of the Dangling Serpent,
Yeah, good night.
who's currently wearing an
day.
Occult Confessions t-shirt, right?
Yeah, that is exactly why I brought it up.
I'm not joking. I actually
Are
am
you
right
really?
now.
There you go.
That's why I said it.
am.
I knew.
It's actually no, this is gonna sound fake, but they're actually pretty
I was about
comfortable
to
shirts
say,
that I just kind of wear when I'm chilling around
you
my
would
room.
wear it under your work uniform,
It sounds
right?
so fake. I
Yeah.
would, yeah. So whenever I would go to work, I had to wear like all
It's just-
black, and underneath of a black button-up shirt, I would wear a black T-shirt, which happened to be it. So I would casually just like flash it to the people who would come in to the
I
bar.
love how this did turn into another plug. Anyway,
It's like an infomercial.
It did.
it really
did.
is.
Refuse to participate in this infomercial at the end of my podcast.
Call now, and you'll.
Hey, didn't you ask if I was wearing it?
I did, yeah, or he did.
Yeah.
Goodbye. We'll talk to you next
Bye.
time. We've got more alchemy
Bye.
for you next round. We'll be talking about the many faces of Dr. Faustus.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Wow, that was weird.
It was.
Okay, bye.